What if the thing you've been hiding your whole life, the pain you never named, the trauma that you never spoke about, is actually the place that God wants to meet you today? Today's conversation is raw, honest, and necessary. This isn't about relieving pain, it's about reclaiming identity. Welcome to Unmasked, where we take off the filters and get real about faith, failure, and finding freedom. I'm your host, Wesley Farnsworth, a dad, veteran, author, and a man who's learned that God does his best work in the middle of our mess. Each episode will have honest conversations with people who've walked through addiction, pain, or doubt, and with pastors, leaders, and everyday believers who are learning to live and lead authentically. So take a breath, pull up a chair, and let's get real. This is Unmasked. Today on Unmasked, my guest is someone who knows what it means to survive in silence and what it costs to stay there. I'm joined by Lawyer Johnson, an author, entrepreneur, trauma advocate, and a voice for men who were taught that silence equals strength. Lawyer's story includes childhood abuse, incarceration, and years of unaddressed pain that quietly shaped his identity and decisions. But it doesn't end there. Through faith, self-awareness, and hard inner work, he began reclaiming who he truly is, not defined by trauma, but transformed through it. This is a conversation about healing without hype, faith without performance, and the courage that it takes to confront what we've buried. Lawyer, thank you so much for joining us today on Unmasked. I'm excited to have you and to dive into your story.
Thank you for having me on, Wesley.
Absolutely. It's totally my pleasure. You know, Lawyer, your story begins with childhood trauma. Without going into graphic detail, of course, can you tell us a little bit about what happened and how did that early pain begin shaping the way that you saw yourself in the world?
How I saw myself? I saw myself as a energetic kid. My childhood was amazing. When I tell you it was amazing, my mother, she spared no expense when it came to us. When I tell you, I had every flavor cereal in our pantry. I mean, from the Fruity Loops to the Apple Jacks, I had everything. I had all the TV dinners, all the pot pies. I was just a happy-go-lucky kid. I love Michael Jackson, the Jackson Fives. They came when Michael Jackson came out with the Ben soundtrack for Ben. I played it into it. I couldn't play it anymore. I love John Wayne as a kid. I was just so fascinated about being a army man. That's all I could think about. Just because I used to watch John Wayne. I just wanted to be in the army. I wanted to be a soldier. And to help me along that path, my mother would buy me a bucket full of army men, and I'll put them all on the floor and put them in different angles as they were shooting, and have the Wrangler Jeep. My childhood was amazing. And the block that I live on was amazing, and my next door neighbors were amazing. And I had a close friend growing up, and we loved Michael Jackson as well. And we were just so passionate about what we was doing as a child. We would just throw concerts, in front of our family and friends outside on our stoop in upstate Newburgh, New York. And we would try to be the Jackson Five. So just to put you in that frame of mind where my head was at as a little kid, everything was so innocent. So one day it was an average Saturday morning. I get up, I watch Space Ghost, and I watch the Justice Leagues. It's a normal Saturday. I go outside and sit on the stoop, wait for my friends to come out. And my next door neighbor, which is my sister's best friend uncle, he offered me some cookies to go down into his basement to help him move something. And it turned out to be a trap for him to sexually abuse me. So, I'm a 7-year-old child. When you that young, you that vulnerable, you look at the world in through a different lens of just uh, the world just being a trustful place to be in. You don't even think about the unknown. So when this incident happened to me, I can remember this guy threatening me. Like, if you tell somebody I'm gonna hurt you, I'm gonna hurt your family, and me going home, I couldn't even process it because my mind was so undeveloped. I just didn't understand it. And even though something like that happened, I knew it was wrong because the inside of my body was telling me it was wrong, and my mental was telling me it was wrong. So me going home, I thought if I was to tell my mother what happened to me, that she was gonna be mad at me for some reason. So I lived with that for 40 plus years. I hid that pain. I hid in silence, and that moment there basically changed the trajectory of my life.
I can imagine how something like that would change your life. I mean, it's just, how did that shape the way that you saw yourself in the world?
I saw myself as a scared little kid. I saw myself as I wasn't gonna let that happen to me again. It made me very skittish, if I can use that word, very skittish, hyper aware of my surroundings. And it kind of put something inside me that poured out into my everyday life. Like, because it's like you develop a response to combat not ever having that happen to you anymore, right? I didn't have anybody to tell them like all this anger that I had inside me. I didn't have anyone to vent that to. So it poured out into like in the classroom, me being disruptive for attention, me being aggressive towards other students, me being defiant, always defiant, never ever trusting any male figure that wasn't a part of my family. If they were not a part of my immediate family, like my uncle or my cousins, I didn't want anybody touching me, standing behind me. Those are the effects that I had once that happened to me.
I don't think anybody can blame you there. That's that's a big thing that happened, big trauma there. I mentioned in your introduction that you're an author, and
Yes.
you titled your book "My Pain is My Identity."
Yes.
What does that phrase mean, and how did that pain quietly become a part of how you defined yourself?
That pain basically became my identity because that trauma created that pain, and it kind of molded me into that pain, like everything. My pain is my identity. Like when I was hustling, like in the streets of Brooklyn, my hyper awareness and my defiancy, and I'm gonna make money at any cost. That was the pain, defining who I was. My pain is my identity. Or when I got into a relationship with somebody and I had all these trust issues because of that pain. That pain was my identity of me not trusting anyone. Me landing in a jail cell, that pain, that was my identity. Like that pain of I'm not gonna let anybody hurt me. I'm not gonna let anybody tell me what to do. I'm not scared of anything. What can I possibly be scared of when at 7 years old, somebody took something away from me that didn't belong to him. That was something that God gave to me. And that just took me off the rails. And that was a part of that pain that created the identity of Lawyer Johnson. But then you still have to, I can't say all bad came out of that pain because the pain is what developed me into who I am. That pain that I went through also created my lens to see the life in a different perspective, especially when it came to kids. That pain made me see the range of protection that I needed to provide for them, even if they weren't my kids. Like today, like, I have grandkids, and when I take them to the park, I'm always focused on where they're at all times. I'm always looking for somebody that resembles or act the way that my abuser did. So that pain is just gave me a different lens of hyper awareness, and it has given me that antenna to alert me when certain things are out of place. Like, I remember one time I was in a park and this older guy was just taking pictures of this younger dude and a younger kid, and I went up to him. I'm like, "Do you know this guy?" And he kind of frowned at me, but I didn't know the guy was his father. He just had an older father, but it's just my hyper awareness that comes from that pain of 7 years old, that I have to always be in protective mode. Even if I'm not protecting me, I'm still, that pain has driven me to protect others. So that's why I titled that "My Pain Is My Identity," because that pain made me aggressive. That pain made me hyper awareness, and it also pushed me in places where it made me understand that if you don't protect kids, I want to use the correct word. If you don't protect kids' honesty, someone will do something to them to make them perceive the world in a whole different light.
Yeah, I agree completely, and I love that you went up to that person in the park and just checked in and said, "Hey, do you know that?" I mean, that's something honestly I don't think many people would do, but it's those simple steps like that that it's something that's tangible and really not that hard to do to help
Yeah.
protect kids. But most of us, we would just be like, "Oh, well, we would just assume that they know." So, hats off to you for being able to do that.
And I'm like that all the time. Like, it's like, even it bothers me, and I hate to say this, it really bothers me if I'm driving down the street and I see little girls or little boys riding on a scooter and it's late at night. It always bring me back to the 7-year-old. It always it always bring me back to the adult person that's the parent and understand what can happen to a vulnerable little kid. And I always tell my wife, like, why would somebody just let their kid ride around this time of night? They like 13 years old, 12 years old. Or why would you let your kid walk to the bus stop by themselves and not monitor them? So I'm always in that space of protection, even though that pain, all the pain that I have gone through my life from 7 years old to now, it created something in me, like I just explained, of that awareness of protection.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you're not sitting in silence about everything. Because I think, especially as men, we tend to suffer in silence, especially around issues of things like abuse or emotional trauma. Why do you think silence is so common among men? And what does it cost us?
First of all, men, we are taught to be strong, right? And no matter what happens, I know for a fact, like in the African American community, we are taught to be strong. We are taught to absorb pain, and we are taught to move on without showing emotions. And I think that society has done a horrible job with confusing vulnerability as a weakness, when vulnerability is like the highest form of strength. And for us, we need to change the cultural narrative that surrounds male sexual trauma. Whereas we can start having these dialogues and start talking to people to get them to understand that what you went through as a child shouldn't stop you from voicing your opinion to help other people that are experiencing the same thing that you are experiencing. So it's just a macho thing. It's a macho thing because people are scared, because people think them, if they speak up, their vulnerability um outcast them from people perceptions of them. Um, I think that's one of the key things that people look at vulnerability as they confuse vulnerability as a weakness when it's basically a strength. What was your second question? I know you had a second.
Yeah, no, how does the vulnerability or the silence, I should say, why is the silence common, and then what does it cost us as men by staying silent, basically?
Um, it can cost you everything. It can cost you a good. It can cost you a good relationship with your spouse. It can cost you a good relationship with your kids. It can cost you your relationship with friends because you're being silent. Because when you are silent, that means that you are embodying all the pain without getting help. And you shouldn't be silenced. I think once you start getting help and you start understanding how trauma works, then you free yourself and you start getting out here, you start speaking your truth to help others. So silence, it kills men, but telling the truth is what's going to free you.
I 100% agree with that. You know, this show is called Unmasked because there's just something so powerful about taking off the mask and is saying, "Hey, I'm not okay. Here's what's happened to me. Here's what's been done to me. Here's what I've done." Because I say time and time again, and I'll say it here, you know, it doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter what's been done to you. It doesn't matter how you were brought up. It doesn't have to define who you are today.
Hmm.
And when you stay in silence, that's exactly what you're letting it do. You're letting it
Hmm.
define you. And so when you stay in silence, you allow it to continue to show up in your life. So, how did unresolved trauma show up for you later in your life, especially in things like survival behaviors or destructive patterns and eventually your incarceration? I know you mentioned how it shows up to you in like the park when you're out with the grandkids, but
Mm.
what about the other areas of your life?
Uh, It shows, like I was saying, it shows up in relationships because you try so hard to not live without that trauma, and you try so hard. You tried so hard to trust. So like when you in a relationship and you're trying to give somebody your all, but it's still a part of you still hurt. That's still in that closet of I don't want to trust at 100% because I trust at 100% before and it hurt me. So even though it's a different trust, it's still trust. So that's how it shows up in your everyday life. It shows up in my everyday life is like when I'm out, like I'm out to one of my kids' football game, and I know who I am as a person. Sometimes you can be walking and you see somebody, they just mean mugging you, like for no reason. But I know who I am because I come from the streets. Listen, I have done things I shouldn't have done in the past, but that trauma sometimes question who I am as a person, and I have to kind of shut it down. Like we're not in that space anymore. Cause the old me, the old me, the old me is be like, what is he looking at? Like, why you looking at me like that? You think you tough? I'm tougher than you, right? So that's a part that shows up. That the trauma shows up in your life, and you gotta be like, you gotta knock that ego down. You had to really knock it down. So also the trauma shows up. It shows up with, sometimes, even as an entrepreneur, it shows up. You try to do your best in everything you try to do. Like when you're doing business with anyone. I have a remodeling company, and also I'm also a licensed electrician. So sometimes, the anger that comes from the trauma, it'll try to spill out, especially when you're trying to go back and forth with somebody. Like just to explain something. I was doing a remodel for this guy, You know, I didn't know that he was gonna be one of those clients that's gonna always question everything you do and always try to undo what you're doing. And I came into this particular circumstance where I was wiring up something, and this guy unwired everything and punched a hole through the wall. So I'm like, I had I had to like kind of like not let the trauma spill in with the anger. I had to kind of like take a deep breath, and I like you got this under control, lawyer. And I had to go back and talk to the guy like, listen, in a humble manner, listen, you hired me to do this job. If you feel like I can't do this job, I will walk away from this job and you can hire someone else to do this job. That's when, you know, I realized that that trauma was spilling in along with the pain at that certain moment. You know, that's when it showed up, but I had to kind of like kill it by looking at the Hugh version of Lawyer Johnson and be like, listen, I don't know what's going on, but here is the solution. Like the old Lawyer Johnson, it wouldn't be no solution. It'd be the trauma, pain, reaction. But now it's the trauma, pain, let's resolve it and move on. And like far as incarceration, the pain spilled out a couple of times, and probably maybe like one time when I was incarcerated. And I was in the kitchen, and at this time I was trying to work for the governor, because in North Carolina they have it's called the governor mansion. If you selected to go to the governor's mansion, they would like cut half of your time. They'll cut half of your time off. So I was selected to go, and I was just being like the good Samaritan. I was on my P's and Q's. They're like, listen, I'm trying to get into this program, get like 30 to 35 days, cut off my sentence, and I can get home early to my family. And I remember this one incident where I was working in the kitchen, and the guy that ran the kitchen, he was very specific. I do not want you giving no inmates extra food. So while we serving on the line, this guy, he's serving people extra food. I'm the baker. I'm not giving anybody any extra anything, because that's what the guy said in the kitchen. So he's looking at me. Oh, he'll sell out. He don't want to give you no extra biscuit, man. Forget him. So now the trauma spills, now the pain from the trauma spills back in. He's questioning my manhood. You know, what you gonna do, lawyer? The traumatized lawyer. What you gonna do? Are you gonna fight this dude right now because he disrespected you? And for that brief second, I zoned out. That's when that trauma had spilled in. I zoned out, and I wanted to fight this guy, and I wanted to hurt him because he disrespected me, and I couldn't stand for it anymore. The trauma of the pain was telling me, man, if you don't let anybody disrespect you, you know, who is this guy? You know, you need to respect, you know, you need to protect your honor and make people respect you. That's when that pain, you know, it took over. And luckily I had a good guy around me, and he grabbed me by my shoulders and he shook me. He like, lawyer, cause I was gone. I was already, I was already gone. He was like, lawyer, forget him. He was pointing at the dude, man, forget that dude, man. He's not worth it. Lawyer, let it go. He's not worth it. And I finally calmed myself down, and I walked away from the situation. But that was that was like one of those times that trauma of pain showed up. And luckily that guy was around me to kind of like, you know, talk me off the edge, because, you know, he helped me out a lot.
Yeah, you had community there with you, talked you down.
Yeah.
I say time and time again, community is so important, and that's a good example. Well, hey, quick pause here. You know, if you're listening today and there's something that we've talked about already in this first part that's speaking to you, share the episode with somebody else that you think needs to hear this. Seriously, it's how the conversations like this get started. You never know what that message might do for the person that you thought of as you were listening to this conversation. So just take a moment and share it with them, and help start the change for somebody else. Okay. Well, I don't want to stop. Like, there's just so much information here. So let's just keep going and jump into this. So, lawyer, what was a moment or a season when you realized that surviving wasn't enough anymore and healing had to begin? And what changed when that realization took place?
My wife, my wife, she would see me sometimes, like, especially when I was writing my book, and I would kind of drift off because no matter what trauma you have gone through or you're going through, it'll always take over when you don't realize it's taking over, because it's a eternal hurt that lives inside you, and it just continue to, like, repost itself in your mind, and you'll know, and you can't really recognize it, but other people around you can recognize it. I knew that I had to change in order for my relationship to survive. My wife, she is a very good person, and the thing that was kind of, I won't say tainting our relationship, is that I start having these outbursts. I want to argue all the time, and every time something would happen up, I want to run, right? Because that's all I would do was run, run away from the pain. And then she was like, you know what? I think that you need to go to counseling, not for you, but for me to understand you more. And just for her to even say something like that made me realize that, this is an individual that is standing beside you. She's not gonna go for all that BS you talking about that you're gonna run. No, we're not running anymore. You're gonna stand still. You're gonna start healing. You're gonna start pushing through. So we went to counseling. She started understanding me better. I started understanding myself better. I started reading books on, um, on trauma, started understanding me better. And I knew at that moment I had to make a decision to change my ways and start being someone that was better for the individual that I was with. And the old me that didn't understand that or try to heal from a decided moment in his life, I will always go back to the pain or the trauma. Like, all my past relationship, anytime somebody says something to me, my trauma or pain will always take over the relationship. I will say hurtful things, they will say hurtful things, and I wasn't the father that I was supposed to be. Not that I was abusive, but I was just wasn't present. I put work over the kids because I had to provide for my family. And I think that defining moment with my wife realizing that I was drifting off and I was still dealing with my trauma and I kept running away from healing. That was a deciding moment. Like, I need to change. I need to change for myself. I need to change for the people around me. I need to change for the people that need me to change to help them for further their lives by putting out my book. So that was a defining for me that I need to stop surviving and start living for myself and to help other people around me.
So during all this changing that's taken place, you're in counseling, you've made this decision that something has to change for not only for others but for yourself, more importantly. And I think that's an important differentiation there to make, is started for other people when your wife said, hey, let's go so that I can understand you better. But then you realized, hey, something needs to change, not only for them but for me to be able to become the best version of myself.
Mhm.
And I love that. So, in all of this changing, how did faith play a role in all of this with your healing and becoming not just performative, but something that you wore on the outside?
Faith helped me to be disciplined. It helped me to understand that it's someone over me that's way powerful than I am, and he's in control at all times. I figured that out early on, because I would try to do certain things that other people could do and get away with it. But every time I do something done, he'll punish me. Like he'll punish me, be like, nope, this is where you need to be at, and I will not have it any other way. And I knew when I married my wife that I had to be 100% committed to her, to my family, to my purpose, because I know that God, when he punish, he gonna punish you, especially when he give you a task to complete in life. It's not gonna be any deviation. And that's when I realized that, my faith is what's gonna push me through, because I have to be disciplined. I have to be firm in my convictions. I cannot align my purpose with anyone's purpose if it doesn't align with God or helping people, or it doesn't have anything with trauma. So my faith grounded me. I know that when I go to night, or I know when I wake up in the morning, I gotta pray to him. I know before I go to bed, I gotta pray to him. I know even when I feel bad inside and sometimes I have evil thoughts, I know that's Satan trying to, make me do something other than what he wants me to do. And I just got to go back, and I got to pray to God, and he helps me out. It's times when I feel like business is slow, I don't get discouraged. I just call on God, and I tell you, he shows up in a matter of seconds, minutes, hours, days. He shows up for me. And the reason why I say that he shows up for me, because I am staying disciplined. I am staying firm in my convictions. I'm not going outside of my bubble of faith. And that is the thing that keeps me going. That is the thing that keeps my blessings coming in. My faith is the thing that keeps me protected at all times. And I feel it. It's not like I actually feel like I am in a secure bubble of faith because I don't hear the noise. I don't hear the noise. Every individual that was not good for me in my past, they're not in my life anymore. And that's for a reason, because God don't want them around me. He has given me my marching papers. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I know how I'm supposed to execute it. And I realized through my faith that it's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's about me helping other people. It's about me leaving a reference point for the world so people can look back later on that's behind me, and they can be like, oh, this is what he did to get him to the next stage of his life, and how he dealt with his trauma. He lived through it. And all that just come through me being firm in my convictions and acknowledging God, loving God, and not aligning my purpose with anything other than God.
So, lawyer, when you talk about healing, what does it really look like in a daily life? Not to not the highlight reel version, right? Everybody can say, "Oh, it says," what does healing look like in the hard, unseen work?
Staying busy, being honest with yourself. Healing is a everyday process. Reading, the things that I do, read. As you heard, my dogs, that's a part of, like, that's a good thing for me, is my dogs, because dogs, to me, I think they are angels, because they connect with you. They can feel your pain. They sad when you're sad. So that's one of my things of healing, is like surrounding myself around my dogs. I have 5 dogs, and all of them love me in a different way. I have one that sleeps with me at night. My wife and I in the bed at night. Also, I have one that, he's a small dog, but I call him the love dog. He loves on everyone. He has zero malice in his heart. Like, he loves everyone. Just looking at them loving a person unconditionally makes me look at the world in a totally different way and not beat up on myself so much. No matter what I'm going through, I know that a part of my healing is giving out love without strings attached. I have to love people for who they are. Healing for me is not judging anyone. Definitely not judging anyone because of their circumstances. Because I understand trauma. I definitely understand trauma. Like I wake up every day and I thank God for letting me heal in a different manner. And my different manner is just keeping my hands occupied by becoming an electrician and being a general contractor, being involved with my grandkids, like taking them to the movies, to the park, doing everything that they want to do, watching their basketball games, answering them questions, just being present around them. And when I say giving me that device of loving and that helping me push through my pain. It's a lot of people that's out there um that didn't make it through. And their devices is drugs and alcohol, or it could be physical abuse towards their loved ones. And I just think God just gave me a different way of healing. The thing that I'm healing from now is sharing my book, like taking a vulnerability and putting it into a book and not being scared, because I know God told me it's all right. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's about the people that you can help. Me writing that book, me put my life in that book, me telling everybody, like, don't you worry about people attacking you. Just put me in front of you. Let them attack me. Don't even worry about them. Let everybody, whatever mean thing they have to say about a person being sexually abused, and I will be the advocate for all of that. I will take on all the pain, all the bullets they're gonna shoot. I'll stand in front of that for you, because I know at the end of the day, you need something to attach to let you know that you can make it to the other side. So that's a part of my healing, is helping other people, being vulnerable, understanding, looking at how the lesser fortunate are, they appreciate life more than some people that have everything for them. Just understanding that, there is more than life than just you. If that could kind of sum everything up in that question that you asked me.
Yeah. And I love that you're the advocate, right? You're the person there that's like, hey, I under, I don't know what's going on in your life, but I'm not letting what you're doing right now define you, right? Because I
Mhm.
think that's something that's a lot of us can do is, man, that person's acting that way, or we're out on the road and man, that person just cut me off, and we automatically assume the worst about them, but we don't know what's going on in their life. We don't know,
Mhm.
where they're on their way to, or where they just left, or we don't know anything about them. And I think it's just, especially with the way society is, say, it's really easy to jump to the negative side of things instead of just taking a minute and being, hey, let's show a little bit of grace and just allow them that, because we don't know what's going on right now in their life,
Yeah.
and just kind of checking ourselves, because it's something that we all need to do.
Yeah.
Today you're an author, you're an entrepreneur, you're an advocate, you're an electrician, you're all these roles. There's a lot of stuff going on. How did you begin the process? How did you begin turning that pain into purpose without skipping all of the work in between?
That's a good question. How do I turn that pain into purpose? I turn that pain into purpose because I didn't want to be the victim anymore. I didn't want to be the victim of you can't succeed, right? Because most time people look at your past, and you got to understand that your past only explains who you are, but it doesn't define who you are. And I had the ability to not monetize my pain, but process it. Process it into, I want to be greater than the trauma that I have gone through in my life. I wanted to prove to myself that I am great in my own essence. I wanted to prove to my peers that your vision of me will never define me. When they label you as something that you're not, I always put in my mind that I have to win. So I had to, I really had to take my pain and turn it into purpose, just to prove to myself who I knew that I'll always be. And that was just someone special. And when I go back to my childhood, I always wanted to be a singer from Michael Jackson. I always wanted to be a soldier by watching John Wayne. I wanted to be a fireman. And that just kind of, me being where I'm at now, kind of validate that I was going to be what I was going to be regardless of the situation that happened to me. Because when I was younger, I was already on that road, and it was kind of, I ain't gonna say kind of, it was kind of derail. And it gave me like a 40-year gap, right? And I had to come back onto the same path, and I had to turn that pain into a purpose of an entrepreneur, the purpose of an author, the purpose of an advocate for child sexual abuse, um, the purpose of that you can live with your pain, and your pain don't have to define you. The purpose of I'm never going to give up. I just have to believe, and I need to constantly have faith in God that He's going to pull me and weather me through the storm.
I love that. And you said something there that I say quite frequently is, when you think about healing, there's a point when in your healing process that you have to realize that, yeah, this happened to me and yeah, it sucks, right? Or yeah, I was addicted to this or that, uh, but I'm no longer, right? And it sucked when I was in it, but now I'm not that person. You can't change your past. It's a part of
Hmm.
you, it's a part of your story, it's a part of who you are today. But like you said, it doesn't have to define who you are today.
Hmm.
You use it to help now connect with other people and help them when they're in maybe the same place, or you can see them heading down that same road that you were in. And I love that you're doing that, and you're not letting your past define you, but you're saying, hey, yeah, it's there. Like, I can't hide it. It's a part of me. And now I'm just going to use it to try and help other people. And that's so important. And
Yeah.
so with that in mind, if you could speak directly to somebody that's listening today, right now, in this moment, and they feel like their past disqualifies them from their future, what would you want them to know?
That your past doesn't define you. What you're doing in real time and in the near future is what's going to define you. Your past does not define you. It does not eliminate you from being great. You just have to keep pushing on. Like I was saying earlier, your your past only explains you. Like, it explains that, listen, he was 7 years old, you know, he was sexually abused at 7 years old. He didn't know how to deal with his trauma. He was always mad at himself. His mind was undeveloped to communicate what was going on with him. So all of that anger inside of him spilled out into the classrooms. It poured out into him hustling in the streets. It poured out in his relationship. He even poured out to the point that he was incarcerated for 5 years, but he came out ready to, become a trailblazer and better himself. And this guy, he became a comedian. He worked for a Fortune 500 company. He retired from that company. He started two companies, a contracting company, electrical trade company. He became an author. He got married to a dentist that's, um, she is one of the main factors in his life that, pushes him up and keep him going and tell him that he can be whatever he want to be. And what's the silver lining at the end? That that past didn't define you. It just explained you. But what you're doing now is what's going to define who you are at the end. So someone tried to direct your movie, but you just repurposed the movie. You became the director of it, and you became the writer of it. And at the end of the day, you are the one going to end the movie. And that's how I look at my life. Somebody started the movie, but I'm gonna write the end of the story, because I'm not gonna let my past define me. And everybody that's looking at this, video, your past only explains you. It does not define you. The only person that gets to end your story and put a sweet ending on the end is you. And once you realize that, that's when you start taking the proper steps to become better. And one of the keys to that is always putting God first. Always put God first in anything that you're doing. And don't get scared, because when you have to understand this. When you ask God for something, like you say, God, I want to be a millionaire, right? I want to be a millionaire, God. Don't ask God for something that you're not equipped to handle. Because when you tell him you want to become a millionaire, and you continue you continue to be firm in your convictions, you're gonna have to deal with all the adjustments he's gonna make in your life. Like, he's gonna remove people that don't supposed to be in your life. If you up, he's gonna strip you down to the bare minimum, because the foundation that you was built on is not gonna stabilize where you're going at. So he's gonna bring it all the way back down, and you're gonna go back to the brick and mortar. But I guarantee you, when he start building you back up and that foundation is strong, and you still keep going up, and he start building and building, you're gonna look around and it's gonna get quiet. Because what you ask God for now, you ask him, I want to become a millionaire. He's going to he's going to clear everything out around. It could be your relationship with your wife or your husband, the ones that they don't really have your best interests in heart. He's going to remove all those individuals out of your life, friends that don't mean no good to you. He's going to remove them all out of your life in order for you to stand on your own and be great in your own way. So your past does not define you. It only explains who you are. You're the one that's going to end your story. You're the one that's going to get the sweet touch at the end with the silver lining. So just make sure, this is just my perspective. Put God first. Never let your past explain you, but don't let it define you. Keep pushing through.
Love that, man. I love it so much. Like, I was going to ask you what's a step that they can take, because that's something I always like to leave my guests with, is an action step. And I love that you said put God first, because man, and I can hear the people now, man. He gonna do what, man? I ain't asking to become a millionaire. I like that. I like this relationship too much. I ain't asking that. So if you could speak now to last question, this is what I want. Oh man, I want you to take a minute and think about this last question for a second. If you could speak to the version of yourself who was still trapped in silence, what would you say to that version of yourself?
I tell the version of that self that you strong, that you a beast, that you're resilient, you have mental fortitude, nothing can stop you. You God-fearing, you're not scared of death. The only thing that scares you is the punishment from God, and you have to keep pushing through and let the world know that you are here and that you're a vessel for God to, speak your truth. That's what I tell you. I tell them you gonna be okay. Just you gotta weather. It's gonna be a bad storm, but trust me, you're gonna be strong. You're gonna be strong enough to get through that storm, and I guarantee you, when you get to the other side, it's gonna be a bag full of blessings waiting for you for God. You just have to stay in your bubble of faith and keep pushing through. You're gonna have to stay firm in your convictions and don't deviate to anyone. Know that what God is communicating for you is for you. It's strictly for you. And don't, people can tell you what to do, but you know exactly in your heart, and all your dreams and all the messages that God send you, you know exactly what you're supposed to do. And I guarantee you, as long as you stick to the strip and, and you push forward and you put God first and you talk to him every day, I guarantee you you're going to get to where you're supposed to be, but you have to weather that storm. That's why I tell the old version to me, man, like, listen, I'm not going to tell you it's going to be sweet. It's going to be a lot of pain. But I tell you this, God do not place a burden on anyone that they cannot bear. And if he give you that gift for you to become a vessel for him, only thing you have to do is keep on walking and walking and walking. I guarantee you, when you see that yellow brick, no one can ever question you. What can they say about you? No one can ever question you. When people look behind you, they're gonna be like, they're gonna give up. They're gonna like, what I'm gonna say about him, or what I'm gonna say about her. This individual has gone through hell. What can I possibly say about her? And that's gonna be the silver lining. That's what I tell the old world to be, man. Listen, in order to get to the sweet spot in life, you're gonna have to go through hell. You're gonna have to make a lot of sacrifices, and you're gonna be in awkward situations. But it doesn't matter as long as you put God first.
I couldn't say it any better myself. I love it. Well, Lawyer, I appreciate you so much being here on Unmasked today and sharing your story with the audience. It's been a real honor to have you with us.
Thank you for having me on.
For those that are out there and they're like, man, I want to know more about Lawyer, where can they find you online? Where can they find your book? Tell them a little bit about it.
Well, if you go on Amazon right now, if you go on Amazon right now, just type "My Pain Is My Identity" and you'll see my book up there by Lawyer Johnson. You can get it on Barnes and Nobles. You can get it on audio on Amazon, Google Books. Get my book on Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Google Play. You can even go to my website. If you go to my website, it's Lawyer Johnson at motivationalwings.com. You can purchase the book offline. I'll sign it for you, autograph copy, send it to you. You can also follow me on Facebook at Lawyer Johnson 2000. You can find me on TikTok at Lawyer Johnson Official. You can also find me on Instagram at Lawyer Johnson 6. So it's easy to get in contact with me. So if you have any questions, be sure to reach out to me. I'm not no doctor or anything like that, but I can direct you to some individuals that can help you. Like, I'm affiliated with NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness. I'm a presenter for them, advocating for people with mental illness, and they have a lot of resources that you can use and kind of help you along your way when you're dealing with your trauma. So that's how you can get in contact with me. Make sure y'all purchase that book, My Pain Is My Identity. Right now I'm at 10 reviews on Amazon. I did real good. I didn't expect a lot of people to even. Nah, I knew that people would buy the book, but because I did the pre-orders, and when they opened the floodgates and I saw the numbers for the pre-orders, I'm like, wow, this book really resonate with people. And I have had so many people DM me, and it was like, this book is incredible. Thank you. So, thank all you individuals that's going to buy my book in the near future. I appreciate it. Spread the word. I hope that my life story can change and create your life story so you can help other people with your life story to continue to grow in life.
Well, Lawyer, congratulations on your book and
Thank
the
you.
success and the 10 reviews on Amazon. As an author myself, that's not an easy thing to do. I've sold books, but I'm sitting at 1 review, so I understand that journey. So congratulations on all of that. And for the listeners out there, if you want to find Lawyer, check the show notes, whatever platform you're listening. I'll provide links to his book and him on social media that you can be able to use to quickly and easily find him and out more about him and his journey. Because we just barely scratched the surface today here in this episode. Well, thanks for joining me today on Unmasked. And again, huge thanks to Lawyer for joining today and being so open and honest and unmasked with us. If something in this episode spoke to you, don't let it stop with you. Share it with one person that God put on your heart while you were listening. You never know where the breakthrough might start with a simple message from you. If you want more encouragement or want information on having me speak at your church or events, or you're interested in working with me one-on-one, find out more information at wesleyfarnsworth.com. And make sure that you join the Unmasked community by connecting with me on social media so that we can keep walking this journey together. Until next time, remember that grace is greater than your past, and freedom begins the moment that you choose to live unmasked. God bless you.